All right, hello, welcome. This is going to be a playthrough of A Tale of Two Brothers, the first campaign in the Battle for West North mainline campaigns. So originally, I was just going to run through this campaign, just blitz through on the max difficulty and just record. But I then realized that after looking through most of YouTube, there's not a lot of videos. It's a very niche game, is the problem. So if I did do that, most people probably wouldn't understand what was going on. So what I'm gonna do for this small series here is that I'm just gonna walk through the campaign and explain all the game mechanics one at a time. And this campaign here is very good as a beginner series because it pretty much introduces the player to all of the core mechanics and a couple of the advanced ones. And especially if you play it on the harder difficulty here, uh, it's actually quite fun. Now, the reason why I'm doing this is because the beginner difficulty is too easy. You could just do it with both eyes closed, and I you don't really learn anything. Uh, and the flip side to this is that since there's only two difficulty settings, if you do the harder one, if you mess it up early on, you basically lose the whole campaign. It's one of those kind of games. Well, for this campaign specifically, where it's either too easy or too hard. So we're gonna do it on the max difficulty here, the Grand Knight. Um, the way I'm gonna do it is that if I do lose a mission, I'll just redo the whole thing. There's this term called save scumming, or there's a couple of names to it, but basically the game lets you reload certain turns as you play through a mission. So usually what people do is that if a turn goes badly, they just reload the turn and then do it again. Now, I quite frankly don't see why there's a lot of vitriol against people who do that. I mean, if so long as you play the game and you have fun, you do what you do, you know? Um, but for me personally, I don't shame people who do it, but I don't do it myself. I only do it if I'm trying to learn or figure something out, you know? So, like, for this campaign here, I've played it through at least 15 times in the last 2 days, trying out different strategies to see how the scenario works out, you know? So, I had a reason why I was doing it. It was experimenting. But for this playthrough here, I am going to play it all the way to the end, and if I lose, I will restart the whole scenario again and then try at it again. I want to start the whole campaign, but just that scenario. And I still haven't decided if it goes really badly because some of these playthroughs they do take like several attempts. I'm not sure if I will upload every attempt or just upload the last attempt. Uh, we'll cross that bridge when we get there. But anyway, so it's going to be The Tale of Two Brothers. It's a 4 mission campaign, 4 scenario campaign. We're going to be playing it on the max difficulty. And I'm going to walk through most of the game mechanics as we encounter them. So this video here, I'm going to try keep it as short as possible. I got my stopwatch running. Actually, I forgot to keep it, but now it's running. So I'll try to keep it to 15 minutes or around 20 minutes or less and break up the parts of the videos accordingly to that kind of time schedule. So yeah, so this first episode here is going to be like a part 0. So I will just run through all of the basic mechanics in the user interface and how the game works basically. And then the next episode will be us actually playing the first scenario and continuing on the campaign. So let's begin with that. So there's always a story and whatnot. I'm not going to even bother. Just to cap it off, basically, there's two main characters. They're two brothers. One's a wizard and the other's a knight. We're playing the brother that's a knight, and the two of them are part of this village. Well, basically, they're both of them are soldiers. Basically, one's a combat wizard, the other is a mercenary, and they have a undead incursion that's going on. So it's our job to figure out what's going on here, because people don't just walk out of their graves for no reason. So in this first mission here, okay, so the way the game works is that they always give you this mission objective tab. So right here, they lays out all the victory conditions, all the yeah, basically all the victory conditions. And also you have the defeat conditions, I suppose. Like these are the things that if they get fulfilled, you lose, basically. So we need to kill the evil mage, which is off to the northwest here. I'll show him in a second. That's how we win. We lose this mission if our main character, the knight, dies, or we run out of turns. It says here 18 turns. You can find out how many turns are left in this top left corner here, where there's the flag. Tells you what the current turn is and how many turns are remaining in the scenario. And there's usually extra text here depending on the scenario. It gives you extra information. So in this case here, if we finish it early, we carry over 40% of our gold to the next scenario. So yeah, that's handy information here. So, okay. We'll just run through like the basic game mechanics. So Battle for West North is a turn-based strategy game. Not really strategy, it's more tactics because it's all individual units. The base unit is people basically. So here, right here, if you have a look, this is our current army right here. For this campaign, we start off with an army. In other campaigns, you don't. You have to build it up as you go on your campaigns. But because this is a beginner campaign, basically, they give you a small army to begin with, so you don't need to think about how much what you need to do with it really. So we've covered the objectives. Now we'll cover the recruit and recall. So the way you get more units is you buy them. So if you look to the top left here, you have gold. So it's next to the turn number. You have the gold amount. So this is the only currency in the game. It's only gold. There's no like mana. There's no like gas or anything like that. There's only gold. It's the one currency. Now, if you look over to the right, you can see your upkeep and your income. So this here with the plus sign is the income, and this one here with the negative sign is the upkeep. So every time you have a unit deployed, it has an upkeep cost, and it drains on your gold reserves. Now, the way you get money in this game is you capture villages, and villages are basically these houses right here. If you hover over the hex with it, and you look over to the right hand in this corner here, it will tell you what kind of hex tile it is and what kind of building is on it. So these villages, if you capture them and you put your little flag on it, that indicates which faction has control of that village. They give you income basically. I should have double checked how much income they actually gives you, but I'll go figure that out for the next video. But that's the way you get money. So every time you capture a village, that gives you income, and then that gives you gold. So once you have the gold, what you can do is that so long as your leader unit, all right, you can identify the leader units by the icon on the top left of the unit. So in this case here, you can see that all of our units have a little icon below the orb. So all of these smaller units have a gold bar that indicates that they are loyal units. And loyal units are quite rare, especially throughout campaigns. And basically that means that they require no upkeep. So this entire army here requires no upkeep whatsoever. So this is a very forgiving campaign. They give you a small army which requires no upkeep. If we are to recruit extra units, however, they are not going to be loyal units and they are going to require upkeep. So the way you do that is that you need to have your leader unit, which can be identified by a crown. I realize now that trying to look at it here from recording the video that you're not going to be able to see the crown icon, but trust me, it's there. It's a crown icon, and you'll be able to figure out by just clicking over the unit. It'll display you which is the leader unit. So this is our knight here. He's the leader, and so long as he's on a keep or a castle, right? Which if you can look to the right-hand screen here, it tells you there this is an encampment keep. This is the recruiting zone, basically. So you need to have your leader unit in a recruiting zone like this, surrounded by castle tiles, and that will allow you to deploy more units. So in this case here, we are starting already in a keep. And what we can do is we can either go to the action tab on the top left, and you can either recruit or recall. Or if you're a veteran player, or as I'm telling you now, this is the better way to do it. You just right click on a castle tile and then do the recruit and recall. Because if you do the action here from the top left corner, it will just randomly spawn it anywhere in the castle. Whereas if you do the right click you have control as to where you deploy. And I recommend that if you're a beginner, you get familiar to doing the right click on the specific tiles to deploy your units, because in other scenarios and missions, when you get sieged or if you're under attack, it's very useful to be able to deploy your units specifically where exactly you need them to be. So I'm just going to demonstrate here because we actually do need to get some more guys. I'm going to recruit an extra unit. So here is your unit roster. So for every scenario, there is going to be a different type of unit roster. In this campaign, however, you're stuck with just one set this year. There's an exception to this in the second scenario, but we'll get to that later. But basically, you're set with your army composition can only ever be these units. Granted, in certain campaigns, you get units. So as you progress through certain campaigns, they will give you extra units that you can recruit or recall. Or in certain cases, you are given one unit that you can't recruit or recall, well, that you can't recruit, sorry, but you can recall. And if you lose that one unit, then it's gone from the entire campaign. So those are very valuable strategic assets. Certain campaigns have that given to the player. But in this campaign here, especially on this difficulty setting, we don't get that. In the easier difficulty setting, we actually do meet an extra character in the second scenario that gives us the ability to recruit heavy infantry. But because we're on the max difficulty, that guy's not going to show up. It's going to be a lot harder for us to deal with the undead fellas. So yeah. So this is the army composition that we have here that we are allowed to bring in. So we have bowmen, footpad, horsemen, and spearmen. So just to recap, we're playing as the humans. They're called loyalists in Battle for Westnorth, but I'm just going to refer to them as humans. There are at least almost, I think, a dozen factions now. They've added quite a few subcategories over the years. But in this matchup here, we're humans versus the undead. And this is the evil mage right here in his little castle. So we got to kill him, is the guy that we need to kill. So each faction has their own strengths and weaknesses, right? And the humans are my favorite because they don't specialize in anything. They're not particularly good at any one kind of strategy or tactic, but they are the most diverse. They are the most flexible. You can always find something in their unit roster that will be able to help you in a certain situation, whereas in certain other factions, they usually have a weakness in a certain aspect, but not with humans. The humans usually have at least some kind of unit to fulfill some kind of tactical necessity. In this case here, however, of course, we don't have all of the units because in this campaign, we're only limited to these, but this right here is good enough. We've got all the units that we're ever going to need to fight through all the enemies that we're going to have to face in this campaign. So I got a little bit carried off there, but let's go back to the recruiting. So you right-click on the castle tile, you click recruit, and what we're going to do here is we're going to pull a footpad feller because these guys are going to be very helpful against the undead in this specific scenario here. So we just either double-click it or you can just select it and then click recruit. The amount that it costs to recruit them is here. So this is 14 gold. So it's going to subtract 14 gold from our 25 gold reserve. Click recruit and voila, it appears. Came out of nowhere. So yeah, that's how the recruitment and the so the recall action. So right now we can't recall anybody because this is the first mission. So the way it works is that as you progress through a campaign, at the end of every scenario, all the units that are on the board, they basically get put into a recall tab. So that when you start the next scenario, you have the ability to call back these units that you have right now into that mission. This is very useful once you start getting higher level units and experience units. That's where it really pays off. The problem with the recall action is that it costs 20 gold to recall a unit. That's the base cost. So, for example, this footpad that we just recruited here, that costs 14. If for some reason we want to bring this specific footpad back into the next scenario, we'd have to pay an extra 6 gold. So the cost reward system there is assuming usually it's an experience. It's got some experience on it, which we will cover later. You're paying the extra gold for the experience that the unit has in the hopes that it will get promoted into a higher tier unit. But we'll get to that in the next scenario when it becomes relevant. So, okay, we've covered the recruit, recall, income, the upkeep. Okay, so since I've already touched upon the experience, we'll talk about the units themselves. So if you click on a unit, you can see that there's like bars next to it. So right now there's green bars, green vertical bars next to each unit. The green bar is their health. Now the better way to look at it is that you just click on a unit and have a look on the right-hand corner here. Here you have all the detailed numbers regarding what the unit is and what's its status. So in this case here, the loyal footpad to the north here, it's got a name. It tells you what type of unit it is. Short description there. But here's the HP. So this is the green bar. So it has 28 hit points out of 28. So it's max HP. And below that, you have the XP bar. So when the XP bar starts getting filled up, that's when a second bar will appear next to the unit. But of course, you don't really want to use the bars. The bars are just useful visual indicators to tell you that this unit is almost ready to promote or is almost dead, depending on which bar you're looking at. But those are the two main bars that all the units will have as the game progresses. So the XP bar here, a unit can get experience points by just being in combat and of course killing enemy units. If you kill a unit, you get a decent amount of XP. I believe the way it works is that if you kill a level 0 unit, you get 4. If you kill a level 1, you get 8 XP. And then after that, it adds extra 8 XP for every tier that you kill. So a level 2 unit, if you kill a level 2 unit, you get 16 XP points. So forth. So that's the XP bar here. And once you reach the XP cap, that's when the unit will level up. So right now here, the footpad is a level 1 unit. And the level 2 variant is called the Outlaw. It's basically a fully upgraded, it's got more health, can move fast, move further, it has better weaponry, better attacks, this, that, and the other. As we progress through the campaign, every time that one of the units gets leveled up, I'll walk you through all the different characteristics and abilities that they have. But that's the core mechanics there regarding the hit points and experience points. You have the movement points here, which is nice to see. So you can see what's the cost of moving. In this case, the footpad has a total movement cost of 8. It can move 8 hexes. Well, it not really move 8 hexes. As you can see here, it takes a certain amount of movement points to move into different terrain, which we will get to in a second here. But yeah, that's an easy way to see here. The visual indicator for the movement points is the little orbs that you see in the top left corner of the units. So if it's green, that means it has its maximum amount of movement points. If it's yellow, means it only has a few more movement points. And if it's red, like the unit that we just recruited, that means it has no more movement points. It can't move, it can't attack, it can't do anything like that. The reason why this one is red is because we just recruited it. We just bought it. So every time you buy or recall a unit, it starts off as it starts off with 0 actions, basically. You can't do anything until the next turn. So, okay, we talked about the orbs, we talked about the HP. Okay, the movement. Okay, we can carry on with the movement. I'll talk about the combat in the next video once we actually start getting to combat. And also I'll talk about the time of day and the healing as the combat begins. So the last thing that I'm going to talk in this video is regarding the movement. So the footpad is very versatile and flexible unit. It's basically a skirmisher. There's quite a lot of units in the human roster that are skirmishers, but this one is the one that we have available to us right now. So if you click on a unit, you can see the highlighted hexes. This is where it can move. So as you can see, the forest doesn't hinder the movement of the footpad because it's a skirmisher, light infantry kind of fella. He can go right through them like it's nothing there. And the way you move it is just left click, then you pick the hex that you want to move it, and then you right click. In this case here, yeah, we can move the guy here, I suppose. Oh, sorry, not right click, left click. This is all left click. I'm getting confused with my RTS games here. So that's how that works. If we have a look at the spearmen infantry, you can see that they can't move as far because these they're not heavy infantry, but they're normal infantry. So they have a limited maneuverability, and they also have terrain modifiers regarding forest and hills. So You can't see it here. Or actually, yeah, here. Okay, this is a good example. You can see here, we select this spearman further up north, that he can't move into these forest hexes because it's too far for him. He can move into this one here because it's a little bit closer. But basically, every time you move a unit into a hex, it takes away movement points. And because this is a normal infantry unit, they get negative modifiers for moving into mixed terrain. That's the term that the game has. And mixed terrain is basically forest, hills, mountains, this, that, and the other. So that's why he can't move here, because it's hindering him. In the next turn, if we move him up forward, in the next turn, when he starts with his full movement points again, he'll be able to traverse it, but it'll be at a slower pace. He won't be able to move as far because he has to go through the forest. So that's how the movement here works. We select the horseman here. You can see that he's got a lot of maneuverability as well. He can go a little bit further than the footpad, but the problem with the horsemen is that they also suffer from the negative terrain modifiers regarding forest. So that's why he can't move here from here. He'll have to get closer, start the next turn, and then traverse it with all of his movement points. For first timers, for playing war games, especially with like hexes and whatnot, this may be a little bit confusing for the beginning, but yeah, you'll get used to it. And the game is really helpful because it shows you, it highlights you how far it can move and where it can move. So there's that. I just realized we're getting to the 20-minute marker, so that pretty much covers everything for this part 0. So the next video, we're actually going to play through the campaign and the mission and get into combat. And as we get into combat, I will explain the mechanics regarding combat. So yeah.